Hey everyone, it's Clint from Canadian Cannabis Culture. Doing a little different thing today. Kind of want to give some people some more knowledge about cannabis, things that I've learned recently as well, so I wanted to share it. So today I'm going to be covering irradiation in cannabis. So irradiation is something that a lot of LPs do and a lot of people don't know about it. You don't have to put it on your label if they do it, so it's a little bit sneaky that way. So disclaimer right off the bat, there's going to be some things that I probably say here in this video that may not be true, but it's the best research that I could do. Things are always changing in the cannabis industry. Companies are changing their procedures, and regulations are changing all the time and things like that as well. So I'm just going to give you the best input that I can and just kind of, try and do your own research on different companies and stuff like that as well. So irradiation, what is it anyways? Basically, it's a process of treating a product with radiation in order to prevent contamination. So gamma irradiation, which uses gamma rays, is the form of irradiation typically used in cannabis. I'm going to kind of break this down so it's a little bit quicker, but you can go on Leafly and look up Irradiation 101 on leafly.ca. And you'll see a lot of the things it's kind of where I'm getting my information from. The gamma rays, from what I've researched, will basically affect the terpenes. That's why a lot of cannabis, in my experience, that's been irradiated doesn't have a high terpene content. Radiation is one-shot procedure, and it does not make your cannabis or food radioactive. Irradiation is approved for non-organic beefed potatoes, onions, dried spices, and certain wheat products. Although prepackaged fully irradiated items must be labeled as such, foods containing less than 10% irradiated ingredients don't need to be labeled. In the United States, the list of approved foods is much broader and includes most meats, seafood, fruits, vegetables, and spices. So it's regulated in the food industry, but not as much in the cannabis industry. Radiating cannabis is also allowed, but not required by Health Canada. It has been estimated by some industry insiders that 80% of LPs, licensed producers, irradiate their cannabis. But a media rep for Health Canada could not verify this number. It's not required for irradiated cannabis to be labeled as such, which is a little bit alarming for me. Is irradiation necessary for cannabis? The short answer is no. From what I'm researching here, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a master grower or anything by those means, and I know it's a lot of work, but from what I can read here, it's basically just being lazy. You don't have to irradiate your cannabis if you're just a little bit more thorough with your procedures. Irradiation is not the only way for cannabis producers to deal with the threat of contamination. Avoiding it in the first place is a good strategy, but it requires diligence throughout growth and production cycles. I'm going to list off some companies too that I know who do irradiate their cannabis and ones that don't. And again, they could be wrong because things always adjust and change. And companies like Canopy Growth, are buying every company in the world. And so once they fall underneath their umbrella, things might change, blah, blah, blah. What are the cons of irradiating cannabis? In a study by Dutch licensed producer Bedrocan, researchers found that while irradiation did not alter cannabinoid content, it did reduce terpenes in varying degrees. So that's the short of it there, guys. Basically, the analogy they gave was the terpenes loss was comparable to if you were to store your cannabis in a paper bag for a short time. What are the pros of irradiating cannabis? Gamma irradiation of cannabis is safe enough to get Health Canada's stamp of approval and provides assurance for immune-compromised patients. For medical patients, this is a quote from an AFRIA exec. For medical patients, especially those with immune deficiency, any level of microbial count in their day-to-day life could pose a threat, and radiation works towards ensuring that doesn't happen. Tamara McGregor, Vice President of Communications at AFRIA, and AFRIA irradiates their cannabis. I'm going to list off some of the brands underneath these companies in a second here. It's really worth highlighting that aiming to limit irradiation isn't about a single step, says Sean Griffin, Vice President of Communications at Flower Corp, which does not irradiate their cannabis. We are intensely focused on every step involved in the cultivation, harvesting, and curing to produce a clean product that is consistent and expresses the broadest possible spectrum of the terpene and cannabinoid profile. Basically says that, when you're talking to a lot of LPs, they use words a lot of like limit or, things like that. So it doesn't seem like there's a lot that say like we try to limit it or avoid it, is what they're saying here in these articles. Still, critics of the practice counter that its very effectiveness is the problem, some calling it a crutch. Irradiation can be used to make a batch sellable that would be otherwise not sellable due to microbial contamination. So that's a little bit alarming, right? So a batch of cannabis that has been contaminated, you can just irradiate it and then it's good to go to sell to people. So I don't really like that at all. It also doesn't mean that the end result is going to be good cannabis, says Nathan Woodworth, Chief Executive Officer at JWC, another LP that does not irradiate. Okay guys, so really quickly, because I know this has been a long video, and again, some of these could be wrong, but from the best that I know right now, companies that irradiate their cannabis are Aphria and or Tilray, because they merged. So Tilray and Aphria is now the same thing. Tilray is the top. So under those two companies, there's Broken Coast. So all these companies irradiate. Broken Coast, Good Supply, Bingo, Soleil, Riff, Kanika, Chowie Wowie, Marley Natural, The Batch, Grail, Dubon, and Remedy, spelled RMDY. Emblem, the brand, which has like Bull Rider, they irradiate. Can Trust, the brand, I'm not sure which their subsidiaries are. And then Canopy Growth, which a lot of people probably are not surprised by, which is like Tweed, Houseplant, Tokyo Smoke, TWD, Simple Stash, LBS, DNA, Doja, Ace Valley. And unfortunately, because I'm a fan of them, 7 Acres has now been bought by Canopy Growth. So I'm really hoping they'll continue with their practices, because like their Craft Collective series is a really good one in my opinion. So I hope they don't start following the same practices as Canopy Growth. Ready Can also irradiates their cannabis, so a lot of people may not know that. And it looks like Tantalus does as well, because Dan Sutton, the CEO, is all over these articles kind of backing up irradiation and talking about how it's not as terrible as everybody thinks. I just think that it should be on the label if it has been irradiated or not. People should be able to know what they're buying. And then companies I know that do not irradiate, as far as right now, and again, it could be wrong, Flower Corp, Peace Naturals, JWC, Ignite, and surprisingly, Aurora apparently does not irradiate. So San Rafael, Whistler Cannabis Co. Anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful for you. I recommend asking your bud tenders or cannabis store people about different LPs, and if your cannabis has been irradiated, and do some of your own research as well. I just wanted to bring it to the forefront and get the conversation going. Okay guys, till next time.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching my video on cannabis irradiation. Please subscribe on YouTube and hit that like button if you can. Cheers.